Welcome to the Healthful Woman podcast. Today is Friday, August 28th, 2020. Today is the fifth and final day of Yoga Week. I hope you've enjoyed the yoga podcast each day. I know I have. Today's podcast is a special one. I'm joined by Kira Fox, who is my daughter and has been a certified yoga instructor since the age of 15. She is now about to start her second year of college, and she continues to practice and teach yoga. We talk about her road to yoga, what it's like being a yoga instructor at such a young age, and also how she has used yoga to volunteer her time to help others. I'm obviously super proud of her, and I'm sure you will really like what she has to say. Now, the podcast with Kira is actually the first podcast I ever recorded. We recorded this nearly 9 months ago on January 15th, 2020, pre-corona. When I was planning for the start of this podcast, I had to test out our new equipment. So I asked Kira to come by so we could test the microphones, the soundboard, whatever. So she came over one night in the winter after school. Neither of us prepared at all. We ended up talking for close to an hour about yoga, her life, and what kind of volunteer work she's been doing. This recording is our first take. I've been holding on to it since January, waiting for the right time to drop it, and I'm really excited to introduce all of you to Kira Fox. Thanks for listening today and for listening all week. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Welcome to today's episode of Healthful Woman, a podcast designed to explore topics in women's health at all stages of life. I'm your host, Dr. Nathan Fox, an OBGYN and maternal fetal medicine specialist practicing in New York City. At Healthful Woman, I speak with leaders in the field to help you learn more about women's health, pregnancy, and wellness. I'm here with Kira Fox, who happens to be my daughter, who's going to be podcasting today with us to talk about yoga. Hello, Kira.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Tell everyone about yourself. How old are you? What are you doing right now in life? What's going on?
I'm 20 years old. I'm in Barnard. I'm a freshman. Right now I'm on vacation. And I plan on studying psychology. And I practice yoga and I'm a yoga teacher.
That's fantastic. So I actually knew all of that information. I'm a good father, so I knew all that, but that was just for our listeners. So Kira, tell us, you got certified as a yoga instructor when?
When I was 15.
When you were 15. Wow, so it's been over 5 years already now.
Yes.
And tell us about that. What brought you to that decision? Because that's pretty young to be a yoga instructor, right?
Yes. So when I was young as a child and before high school, I was a competitive gymnast and I loved gymnastics. It was a big part of my life. I'm sure you remember.
Oh, I remember very much, very well.
When I was going into high school, I was sort of done with gymnastics, but I wanted to do something else because I was so invested and involved with gymnastics. I wanted to exert that somewhere else, preferably somewhere active, but something that would be good for my body. And my mom, your wife.
Yes, I know her too.
She was very into yoga and she got me into yoga. So I began with beginner classes and I met a teacher who's still my teacher who I love. And I just started practicing yoga, not with the intention of becoming a teacher. My freshman year of high school, I practiced yoga and then I wanted to learn more about it and maybe wanted to teach, especially teaching kids. So I signed up to participate in the teacher training, which is 200 hours the summer going into 10th grade. And it was a 200-hour teacher training in the city at Pure Yoga. And I learned a lot about yoga and I learned about teaching. And that's when I decided I really wanted to teach.
Right. So this was the summer after freshman year of high school.
Yes.
So you would turn 15 when you're a freshman and you're in class in the summer. And as I recall, it was 200 hours, which was basically, I think, was it 5 weeks for 40 hours?
Yes.
Something like 8 hours a day.
It started at 8 a.m. and ended at 6 p.m.
Oh, so no, so it was, I think it was, yes, it was 10 hours. So it was 50 hours a week for 4 weeks.
Yes, Monday through Friday.
Which is pretty intense.
Yeah, it was called an intensive summer program because usually it's spread over the course of a year, but it was spread over the course of a month.
In this class, tell me about the makeup of the people in the class with you. So it's you're a 15-year-old finishing freshman year. And who was in the class with you?
I was by far the youngest. It was all women. It's not exclusive just to women, but my group, the students were all women.
How many were there?
I think there are about 20.
Okay, so 20 people pretty much together all day for a month.
Yes.
So it's like camp other than sleepover.
Yeah. I think the person who was closest to me in age may have been 18 or 19. And there's a lot of just no one over the age of 60, but the average age was we're in the 30s probably. And I met a lot of interesting people who I would have never met or hung out with in the summer. And it was a really good experience.
I remember that you were saying that everyone there's talking about, their kids or their
Yeah.
jobs, and you're talking about driver's ed and
Yeah. I'm
chemistry
talking
final.
about like tests and school. And now I wasn't even driving yet. And they were all talking about kids, and some of them had kids that were my age. And it was just really funny because I was just at such a different point in life. But they really were respectful, and it was cool.
Right.
I was the youngest person who did that program at the studio, Pure Yoga.
Right. I mean, at 15, it's unusual
Yeah.
to see 15-year-old yoga instructors. So when you're doing it, how does it work? Like when you start to be a yoga teacher, do you have to start at a certain level, or can anybody just hop into teacher training? How does it really work with that?
Anyone could hop into teacher training. They don't test you based on your skills or hours of practicing. Anyone could join as long as you're committed and you show up every day and you do the work and you kind of commit to doing the program. You don't have to be doing a headstand, or you don't have to even be so familiar with the practice. I was only practicing for 1 year and I joined, and you could join at any level.
Right. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is yoga instructors themselves have varying levels of skill or how advanced they are.
Yes.
Some yoga instructors have been doing it for 50 years and are, unbelievable experts, and others basically just did a teacher training, and they may be very good teachers and may run a very good practice, but that doesn't mean that they themselves have advanced maneuvers, which is nice because it's not always this feeling like, oh, I'm so awful and the teacher's so awesome. Sometimes you're at a similar level. They're just guiding you.
Yeah. So my skill as a teacher versus my skill as a practitioner are very different. Being a good, in quotes, good at yoga, it doesn't help with being a good teacher. It's very different. When I'm teaching, I have a different mindset because it's not about my practice. It's about feeling the students' levels and suiting them. So it's a very different experience when you're teaching versus when you're practicing.
Right. It's interesting. I have the same thing with medicine because there are some people who can be great doctors, but aren't very good at teaching people things. And others can be fantastic teachers, but can even not be practicing medicine anymore. They could be retired, or maybe they're not so good at something skill-wise. They're different skill sets. Obviously, you need a knowledge base. You need to know what you're talking about in yoga, but you don't have to be an expert practitioner in order to be a great teacher, and vice versa. You can be an expert practitioner and not be a very good teacher and enjoy going to classes.
Yeah. When I try to kind of improve my teaching, and the people who I look up to I don't really even think about their practice. I think about if they teach a good class. So if I want to learn from teachers, I learn from teachers who teach a good class, not from teachers who have, it's nice if they have a good practice, but it's not really relevant.
And so when you were there, what kind of things do they do on a day-to-day basis for 10 hours a day?
So they started with a short flow, pretty basic, I think all levels. It was suitable to everyone. Some sun salutations. And then we had a schedule, so we were aware of what we were doing that day. So some days were anatomy days where we learned about the anatomy, which I found very interesting. Sometimes we were learning about the philosophy of yoga and the history. We started with the history of yoga. And then towards the last few weeks, we learned more about teaching a class and more about adjusting, which I actually found the most interesting, learning about adjustments and learning about how
When you say adjustments, you mean how to physically help someone get into a pose?
Yes, how to physically adjust students into poses. That was more towards the end, after we learned about the anatomy and after we learned about the philosophy and the history. We also, every Friday, I believe, we had a teacher who came in as a guest who would kind of present their style of yoga. So we had 1 week in Ashtanga, which I didn't know then that I would be so into currently. I'm now into Ashtanga, which is only recent for me, but that was an example of a Friday special. We also had yin yoga. We also had restorative yoga. So we got a taste of different types of yoga. And we learned some Sanskrit. I did not did not stick with me so well. Sanskrit is not my strong suit. Some of the training involved chanting, which didn't stick with me either, but it was very interesting learning about it and learning just kind of getting comfortable with things you're not usually so comfortable with.
Which is actually something that's part of the philosophy of yoga in general, is sort of getting balance and getting comfort with various situations and having things that are difficult for you and how to cope with that. Because with the poses and it's with like life, that there's some things you just know you are not yet able to do, but you keep working towards it. And that's why it's called practice.
Yeah. So there's things that weren't necessarily my favorite, but I needed them. And it was so interesting to get exposed to all this different types of just teachings that I don't think you can get unless you do one of these programs. And people even entered the program knowing they weren't going to teach after. They just wanted to learn more about the practice and what they were doing, I guess.
Right. And it's also important, like when you're learning the adjustments and the proper positions for the poses, these have been done in a certain way for a long time. And if you start veering from them and doing it a little bit incorrectly, you can actually get hurt. And so part of the adjustments is making sure that someone's doing it properly so that their joints are aligned and they don't get in a position where they could hurt their back or their knee or their neck. It's not a very dangerous sport, obviously, yoga. It's not high impact. But if you do things incorrectly, you could possibly twist something or fall. And so it's important that the teacher has training and how to actually help you. And that's even if you don't have an injury. And sometimes people come to classes with injuries and you have to modify because of that.
Yeah. So since it was a 200-hour and the most basic sort of training, we didn't learn so much about specific injuries. We learned more than a few of modifications for, let's say, a knee injury or shoulder injury. But something that I would probably find more interesting in the future is to learn about more specific types of injuries and how to approach like a private lesson with that person instead of modifying for just one pose. If the person wanted to use yoga to help their injury, that would be sort of something I could see myself wanting to pursue.
Right. Because one of your teachers, one of your mentors, she's a physical therapist now.
So yoga is very therapeutic for the body. So the more you know, the more you can help, and it's really cool. Yeah, my teacher, who I've had since the first year I've been doing yoga, Trella, she's great. Everyone in my family knows her. She's basically my family. She went into physical therapy and is going to be using yoga as a physical therapist. And it's very interesting. And I get to kind of hear secondhand from her what the cool things she learned that day and just in general.
Right. Trella's definitely
special.
Yeah. When Kira's in our home, Trella's in our home. If Kira comes with Trella attached, it's a wonderful thing. And then after you graduated, or I don't know if it's called graduation, after you've completed your training and you're an instructor, over the course of the year, you're a sophomore in high school, and you had opportunity to teach some classes and do some private lessons around the neighborhood.
Since I was only 15, I was very lucky. I didn't have the pressure to make yoga into a lucrative career as other of the women in the training did. So I began teaching community classes, and it was an amazing experience and way to practice teaching without the pressure of not being amazing, because it was you get better at teaching from practicing teaching.
Right. And explain what a community class is.
So a community class is, we held it in my aunt's attic, and anyone is welcome to come. It's a free 1-hour yoga class. It was an open level vinyasa class. And it was typical yoga class, but it was free, and it was great for me because I got experience in teaching a class, and I did a couple of those. And then I also did private lessons where I would go to people's homes and teach them, or them in a sibling, or them in a spouse, and teach a 1-hour class catered towards them, which is also great experience in learning how to adjust your plan. You gotta just base it on that one person. So
right, it's more individualized.
It is individualized. So I got the chance to both teach community classes. I taught 2 community classes at this studio called Real Hot Yoga, which was in a hot yoga room, which is yoga that's in a room that's about 100 degrees, which was great experience because I also got to teach in a hot yoga space, which it changes it up. And I also taught children. I taught some of my dad's patients who were pregnant, which was that was also a great learning experience, and it was super fun. I volunteered.
Right. They still call me. They're
I
still
love
they're
them.
like, where's Kira?
They're
Where's
great. Even
Kira?
after they had their babies, still.
We need Kira. It's for yoga teachers. When you teach a class, it's somewhat regimented, meaning the teacher
Yeah.
comes in and says, all right,
I have a plan.
yeah,
Usually, I mean, it could change,
right.
but with a private,
Yeah, it's totally separate. And when it's a class, you come, you know what music you're playing. You sort of know, is it 60 minutes? Is it 75 minutes? Here's what we're going to do. Here's our flow. And you may do it. Some teachers do it always the same. Some teachers do it differently, but it's individualized. Again, someone says, I want to do inversions, or I want to do stuff related to my lower body, or I want to do planking. And so you have to be more adaptive, and you got to experience it both. And again, at a young age. And then the next summer, so when you were 16, after your sophomore year, you did advanced training.
I did an additional 100-hour teacher training, again, through Pure Yoga in the city. It was a mentorship training, and I had my mentor, Lauren Taus.
That's your other person.
Incredible person. And this training was like every single thing I learned was so perfect for me, and I loved it because you choose a mentor, and then you get to adjust in their classes. So the program goes on for about 3 months, and there's a few main parts. So one is you get to adjust your mentor in her classes or his classes, and another thing you got to do is you got to teach a community class at Pure Yoga weekly.
Every Sunday.
It's really a unique opportunity. And then 3, you get to meet with your teacher, and they give you points, and you can come with them to other classes. Sometimes I would sub for Lauren in a random class in the city if she needed. But I'll go back to what it means to adjust a class. So it would be kind of an assistant who walks around the room and physically adjusts people and their poses and modifies for them. And you get 2 things out of it. First, you get to experience their class without taking it. So you really are just focusing on the teaching aspect. And 2, you are getting hands-on experience in adjusting. And it's easier to adjust when you're not teaching. So you get to practice adjusting. It was pretty cool.
I remember that summer so well. Every Sunday, my wife and I, Michal and I, would go to the city with Kira. We would go to Pure Yoga, take the community class. And there were people who came. Not only did people come, people came every week.
I had my regulars.
There were some people who came because they said, well, that's pretty cool. Kira's doing it, or friends of ours. And so, which is nice. But there were people, just randoms. People lived in the community, and the classes, I think, are either free or very inexpensive.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a member to come to the classes.
So non-members came in. There were people who came every week, and you got to work on your Dharma talks.
Yeah, so that's why I also chose Lauren. Lauren is very inspiring, and I don't always connect to teachers' talks in the beginning.
Right, the Dharma talk is like the little lesson of life that the yoga teacher says at the beginning, and it was a little startling to have a 16-year-old giving a lesson in life.
In my classes now, to be honest, I don't usually give a Dharma talk. I will always have a moment to set an intention for the class, but I don't feel like I'm at a place to Dharma talk anyone because, I'm 20 and there's like people who actually probably have much more to teach about life than me. But it was a good experience to have to do and be uncomfortable with doing it, but still doing it anyways.
Right. And you have remarkable taste in yoga music, I will say.
Oh, that was a really fun part about becoming a teacher, getting to pick your own playlist and liking every single song, that was fun as a young girl. Being able to bring in some cool music.
Right. I've been in classes where the music is awesome, and I've been in classes where the music is literally a distraction to me because I'm like, oh my God, what are they playing?
Yeah, I remember I spent hours making my playlist perfect, and it was so fun. That
paid off. That was awesome music. It was. I remember the playlist.
I still love it, and that's something I don't really get to do with privates because privates are so different. They don't run like a class. But when I teach a class, I love picking the music before. And the music also helps me. I know when to start winding down based on the music. So it's something that's a really good tool for teachers. Sometimes students, one time I had a student who asked for no music. And it was actually hard for me because I didn't have that marker in my head of when to.
Right. What the cue is sort of what time it is in the classes.
And I'm like, how do people just listen to my voice all day?
Right. And most yoga studios don't have clocks in the rooms. So you can't really see what's going on.
But still, the songs still they help.
And I also remember that summer I don't remember if it was that summer or a different summer where you did like rooftop yoga.
Yeah,
You
so
did all
that
these
was
cool things.
because
Because
I was
Lauren is like hooked up with everybody.
so
She knows
Lauren
everyone.
is Lauren's amazing. And of course I'm still in touch with her. She's my mentor. So she had all these opportunities that I got to sub for her, or I got to watch her classes, and I got to listen to her insight, and she was able to give me feedback about my classes. And that summer I went on her yoga retreat in Costa Rica with my mom, which was super fun. And I remember I got to teach one class there, and it was one of my favorite classes I've ever taught ever. It was because I knew the people, and everyone was just so open to me teaching them, and it was just great vibes, as they would say.
Right. And you all had this shared experience of having the
bugs,
sleeping with the bugs in your room, and which is, by the way, bugs in the room is not a good thing for the women of my family.
No,
they are not happy with
and
bugs.
I was even better than my mom.
I am the chief exterminator at our house.
And then through Lauren's retreat, I also met a woman who was involved in Lululemon, the clothing line brand, and she liked my class, and we got along, and I didn't even know she worked for Lululemon, but she gave me this opportunity to be coming up on that fall of 2016 to be teacher of the month in one of the Lululemon locations, which was another great opportunity and experience where for a month every week I taught a community class in the Lululemon store. So they moved all their clothing to the side, and it was free to the public. Random New York City residents came, and I got
totally forgotten about that. Oh my God.
It was amazing. And I got to teach a class for every Sunday for a month at Lululemon, which I love Lululemon. So.
Right. Yeah, Lululemon
and they gave me some gifts, which was pretty nice. But it was really cool how they've transformed the store into studios. And another experience I had with Lauren was in Times Square, where she was running the Aerie, which is a clothing line brand. They had the Yoga Solace. It's like the longest day in the summer.
Oh yeah, in the middle.
So they have
June.
in Times Square yoga just on the ground, and I got to be a demonstrator for Lauren when she taught, and that was also so cool. And recently, actually, last year in Bryant Park, Lauren taught a class, and I got to adjust and I got to assist, kind of like old times. And I love these types of classes because it's just people, so many different types of people who come, and they're just so happy to be there, and everyone's at a different level, but everyone's moving together, and it's just such good, it's just a really nice vibe of yoga, healing, and people coming together for yoga.
Yeah, the yogis are a good community.
When I get to be a part of those things, it's just amazing. Like to see, especially in New York, when you think everyone's so cold and everyone hates each other and everyone's angry. Sometimes people, they take off their shoes, they're on the floor doing yoga in the park. No one's on their phones. It's special.
It's an interesting community, the yoga community. I had forgotten about that, but I remember the Lululemon thing was so cool. I mean, Lululemon is like the mothership for the yoga community
for
of New
yoga
York.
Attire.
And then they would just like clear out the store and put mats all over the place.
Free. And it's first come, first serve.
People would show up. Yeah. And I remember that. And it really opened up so many opportunities for you. Just that decision to start practicing yoga and to become a teacher really opened up like so many cool things for you. And I'm sure when you applied to college, it was unique to have someone as a yoga instructor. And Lauren actually wrote you a letter of recommendation. Yes. She's an alum.
So another big passion of mine is volunteering. And what is really special about my being a teacher, being able to use that skill in volunteering. So I found it really, actually, I was able to give back with my yoga because as a teenager, you don't have that many skills. Like you don't have a profession, you're not a doctor, you can't really give in so many ways besides giving your time. But I was able to provide something that since yoga is so healing, I was able to provide something so healing for others. That was really when I got to use yoga for good.
Right. I definitely want to talk about that because, I mean, Kira's my daughter. So obviously I love you. I love Kira and I think you're the best. And I would always, I'm on your team. But objectively, I can say that Kira's just so impressive and is one of the reasons that there's like hope in this world is because there's people like Kira who are growing up and people like me who are moving out. But what Kira was able to do with her yoga is really find ways to give to other people, specifically to yoga, So I know that Kira mentioned she would, teach some of my pregnant patients, some yoga, but also then it really moved on to families who needed someone. So these are families who are struggling, and Kira would go to their homes after you got a driver's
Yeah,
license.
that
You'd
was
be
great. Once I got a car.
you'd be yoga on wheels. So tell me about, for example, like with Friendship Circle,
Yeah.
what Friendship
So
Circle
it
is and what you
started
did.
actually with Kula for Karma, which is an organization that provides yoga to in places that could need it. For example, they have yoga in hospitals, they have yoga in homeless homes, and I was really interested in one of their programs called Youth at Risk. So I got involved in teaching kids in an impoverished area in Paterson, New Jersey, in a public school in the summer. Like they had a camp in the summer. There was no air. It was very, and most of them spoke Spanish as their main language, but you can teach yoga without knowing a language. It was like an eye opener. So I would teach there. I think I taught once a week or twice a week to these children. And it was the first time that I really felt that what I was doing mattered, because the children, I've never experienced teaching children who were just genuinely grateful. And I'm like, oh my, I'm so happy I get to even teach them. And I remember in the beginning with kids, it's different. I'm not gonna be like, set an intention for your practice today. I would go around and I would do an exercise, usually saying something you're thankful for or saying something you're excited about. And I remember I would start. I didn't want to be too I didn't want it to be about me, and I didn't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable or trigger anything. So I would say something really simple like, I'm thankful for my ponytail holding my hair back, or I'm thankful for the Band-Aid covering my cut. Because not all these kids had great families or homes. I couldn't say I'm thankful for my house. So, and I would just listen, and one kid would say, I'm thankful for my shirt. Another kid would say, I'm thankful for my mom. Another kid, I'm thankful for my dog. No one was saying, I'm thankful for my toys. It was meaningful. And one kid said, I'm thankful for this yoga. And that really touched my heart, because for a kid to even express that, it was really
Right.
meaningful.
And to get that kind of positive reinforcement for
Yeah.
something you're doing when you're a teenager is
Yeah.
really impressive, because like you said, most of the time when you're volunteering as a teenager, and it's wonderful, usually it's, what can you do? You can visit
hanging
someone, or
out,
you
or
can spend time or play with someone, or maybe do a volunteer to, help clean up a park or do something like that. But this is really, you're participating in their lives in a very meaningful level, and it's very rewarding. And so you had that program, and then what was one
Yeah.
of the next
So,
ones you
and then
did?
throughout the year, there's this organization called Friendship Circle, which is an amazing organization that helps families with kids with disabilities of various types of disabilities. And
Right,
a lot,
these are both physical disabilities as well as
as
intellectual
well, yes, as well
disabilities and
as cognitive
developmental. Yeah.
yes, sorry. My role was that I would go to homes with families with children with disabilities, and usually not teaching the children, but you never realize how much, or you do realize, but how much a family goes through, even if they're not the ones with the disability. They don't have the time to go to a yoga class. They don't even, not a lot of times their siblings get sort of neglected, because a lot of the time is focused on caring for the child with disability. So these programs help the whole family and the child with disabilities. So my role was sort of being a service for the family. So I would go to the homes of these families, and I would give the parents, or maybe a sibling and the parents, or whatever they needed, an hour of yoga focused on them for free at their whatever time worked for them. And it was special because these parents certainly did not have the time to go to a yoga studio and take a yoga class. Like, they have a lot on their plate. So for me, even to help in a minor way was something incredible, and something that I was so like fortunate to be able to do, because everyone wants to help, and being able to actually help is something like I can't take for granted, because it's just a skill that I was lucky enough to have.
It's fantastic. And I think that also sort of led you to what you started doing over the summers.
Yes. I don't remember the exact order, but I went to Israel for one summer in a children's home for children who were they were all neglected. So they were either abandoned, or they were forced out of their homes due to abuse, or due to alcoholism, or substance abuse. So all these kids had a rough life. And I remember I started offering yoga to them. I was not there for yoga. I was there as a counselor. And I remember that I wanted to use if they wanted, and this was in Israel, so it would also be in another language. But if they wanted yoga as one of their activities, I would like it's something I could do it. I would be more than happy to. And I remember I did it, and it was just the kids. They've never had it before, and it was something so exciting for them, and it was really a highlight of my summer. And I continued sort of doing that. I took a gap year before college, and I went to a children's home like the one I did in the summer for a year. Half of it was learning, half of it was volunteering, and I started offering again a yoga class like the one I did that summer for these types of children. And it was so therapeutic to them, and they got attention, and it was something that I can't really put into words, but it was actually a way to bond with them and a way to connect with them in a way that they enjoyed. So I wasn't asking them questions about their families. I wasn't like intruding their space. I was offering an activity that they may have wanted to do. And we did a lot of fun things like games, a lot of inversions, because that's what these kids liked. And I felt like I connected to them and formed relationships even without speaking about their lives, because providing them just an outlet to relax and an outlet to exercise, it was something really important. And I was happy that I was able to contribute.
Yeah, it's great for them to, helps relax their mind.
Yeah.
It helps take their mind off things. It is physical, gives them activity. It gives them a way to bond with you and another person. And again, yoga is a universal type of activity. You can go to a yoga class in any country in the world, and you're going to be doing the
Yeah.
same types of things. And even if you don't speak the language, you know what they're doing. You see them, the positions, the moves, and you can do it.
Yeah, it's
and
a
you
lot
can
of like
really,
pointing like this, there.
yeah.
And then also a lot of kids are like, but I'm not good. Like, I'm like, there's no such thing. First of all, I've seen it all. There's no way you're not good. And I don't like, yoga shouldn't make anyone feel bad about themselves. So I never want to make it about you're good, you're bad, your right leg's good, your left leg's bad. Everyone's good. Some people are more flexible in one way, but they're less flexible in another way. Some people are better at breathing. Some people are better at just, it's not about good or bad. So I like to show kids that it's just something fun they can do, and it shouldn't be something pressuring. They shouldn't have to close their eyes and hold a pose for 10 minutes. They shouldn't have to feel like, oh, they can't do the inversion. They can't do it. I just like to make them feel good about themselves. And when you get that child to smile and feel proud about, like I'm thinking about it in my mind, specific kids, and you just get them to feel good about themselves, like it's so worth it. And it feels good for them. So it gives them a sense of like something they're proud of that they did. And I like to make it like special for them. And
you're still in touch with these kids.
yeah. And I remember I just visited the home, and they're like, oh, you were the girl who did yoga with us. So even girls who weren't
Yoga girl.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice that you can help. And that's what I love, helping through yoga. That's what I wrote my college essay about.
Right. I know well. I must have read it 400 times.
Yeah, but it was, so people ask me, oh, that's such a good thing you did for college. I'm like, when I was 15, I was not thinking about college. So I think I was lucky I started it before people started doing things for college, because then it would have gone into me, and I don't know. But I did yoga purely just to do it.
Right. You did it when we were thinking about going to high school.
Yeah. So I was lucky to have done it before that stage where, ooh, should I do this for college? Because I think that would have defeated the purpose of yoga.
That would not have been very yoga-like.
It would not. And
no.
I'm happy
that would be
when
a shame to the yoga community.
Obviously, like it's a bonus in life when you have those things, but to do it just because you love it, or to do it just because you have a general interest in it, is something that is like, it's valuable.
Right. And then yoga, I know that for the past 2 summers, you did one more experience at Camp Simcha, right?
Oh, yeah. So for Camp Simcha, it's a camp run by an organization called Chai Lifeline, which I'm very involved with and very close with. They provide services to families with kids struggling with cancer and other chronic and diseases and illnesses. And they have a camp, a free camp for campers to come and sleep. It's a 2-week program. And I've been lucky to have been a staff member there for the past 2 summers. And in the morning, the second year I was a counselor, I didn't have the time ability to do yoga really. But the first summer, when I was a waitress and when I was a specialty staff, in the morning I would offer yoga to staff members and anyone who wanted obviously free, who wanted just a yoga class before their day of working with their campers, because yoga is good for everyone. And it was people in long skirts doing yoga, and the kids had obviously tons of activities, but it was nice to offer something to the staff. So before their day, they can have like their own a time to themselves and time to keep themselves healthy and keep their minds well. And so it was nice to be able to give back in that way too.
Right. I also want to talk about.
And I didn't formally do yoga in camp, but I did do yoga with some girls, and one girl in specific who I saw her this year, and she was like, we didn't do yoga this summer together. And it reminded me of, I did one yoga class with her 2 summers ago, and she still remembers it. She is an adorable girl. She's in a wheelchair, and we got her out of her wheelchair. We put her on the floor and we were doing yoga, and she kept on asking me if I'm a real yoga teacher or this. And it was so incredible. We were doing yoga on the floor. We were doing some upward dogs. Then we did some stretches. It was so special to me, and it was so cool that she remembered it too. She remembered that one time we did yoga when her counselor was packing her stuff, because it's hard to pack things. So I was just helping in any way. And that one time we did yoga, she still remembers. And
it's also nice because so much of her life is defined by what she can't do.
Yeah.
And then here, these are all the things she can do.
Yeah, so that's what camp is about. I could be a walking advertisement for this camp. They have the ropes course where anyone can go on the ropes course. They have the pool, which is my favorite thing to see, where anyone, even in wheelchairs or people are swimming. That's the whole like mission of the camp. Everyone is able to do everything.
It's amazing. Now, what I wanted to shift to in terms of yoga, because obviously this has been so much about how you got to where you are, but so you know this obviously, but in our family, yoga is pretty big. So Kira's obviously an instructor and practices regularly and is doing all these volunteer works. Her mother, my wife, does Ashtanga yoga, which Kira mentioned before.
She's way more committed than me.
Yeah,
she goes every day.
She does basically 5 or 6 days a week, and she's the first one in the studio. And she's went on retreats, and she went to meet the Ashtanga gurus in Chicago.
Legit.
Yeah, she is definitely legit when it comes to that. And I started doing yoga probably around the same time you started doing it. I think I started going to a class at Pure. I joined. And so I now go once or twice a week. I obviously did all of your classes first just because I was your father, but then because I was doing yoga.
My groupies, they come.
We're devotees. And this also comes into sort of where I am as a doctor for women's health and for pregnant women. I want to talk a little bit just about the benefits of yoga that you see in your own life and also for the people that you help with their practice. So for me, I know physically I love it because it's difficult when you're doing it, but when you're done, you feel, you get a good workout. It could be more relaxing. It doesn't have to be a tough workout.
Sometimes I give more restorative class, but still it has those benefits because you're stretching. So physically, like you said, there's tons of benefits, especially even it's beneficial for people who don't exercise at all and are just doing yoga. And it's beneficial for people who run and do weights and it's like a good balance because it strengthens your muscles and it also really stretches them in a healthy way. So I see a physical benefit for sure because the body, it really opens up the body and people, it feels good.
Right. I hang out with a bunch of guys who work out all the time, and they'll tell me sometimes about these classes they take that are full body conditioning with weights and cowbells and planking, and it sounds awesome. And I tell them that I get the same type of workout with some of my yoga classes, and they can't believe it. And I said, some of the classes that I'm done, I'm sweating. I am just beat. It's really hard. And other classes are much more meditative and, restorative and more relaxing. And there's everything in between. So there's different types of classes. So if someone maybe feels like they're not in good shape or they're not so flexible, there's definitely classes that can get you to that point. Or for people who are really hardcore athletes and work out, there are yoga classes that are so physically demanding.
That's what I love about yoga, because yoga is sport, but also a practice and a way of life that you can do forever.
Right.
Like my grandma's doing, Savta does yoga. My dad's mother does
That's
yoga.
That's right. Yes. And shout out to my mom.
I've been doing yoga forever. So, and it's something that there's so many different types. There's chair yoga. There's standing yoga. There's just meditation. So yoga has such a wide range of ability and levels and opportunities that really, if you want to do yoga, you can.
Right. And I think all forms of exercise have a benefit mentally, right?
Yes.
Either just, you feel you feel accomplished, B, there's that physiologic idea that when you get those endorphins, you actually feel
Yeah, you know
better.
that. You're the
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah. You get, you sort of do feel better. Also, it does improve just sort of in general, your blood pressure, your pulse, all those things
Yeah.
are better. But also there's that real mental aspect of yoga that it is part of it is about calming the mind.
Yeah.
Part of it is about understanding how to handle struggles and challenges, and some of it can be a little kooky,
And I'm
about
not that
about
into the
being one
kooky
with your
stuff.
mat and
Yeah, it's not my thing.
referring to the
I
ground
like
as
to
the
make it
earth. Yeah,
practical.
but a lot of it is real. This idea that
For sure.
what does it mean, like balance, the physical balance that you actually have to balance on one leg, but then this idea of balance in your life. And these things are, it's true itself, and it's also a metaphor for how we
Yeah.
function in the world.
So when I teach kids, and even in my own practice, the more challenging aspect to yoga, as me and kids, as myself included, is the part about staying still and the part about breathing and being calm. That has always been the harder part for me, and the more challenging part for me about yoga, because it's a big part of yoga, and it's really good to practice to kind of be able to regulate your body and calm yourself. And at the end, especially when I teach kids, at the end of the class, I always give them a little, like, I tell them we're going to pick one song. I usually have like a song that they would like, from like a relaxing song from a Disney movie or something. And I say that we're going to lay down. You could keep your eyes closed or open, or you can like keep your legs crossed, but we're going to lay down and stay still until the song ends. And I tell them, this is the hardest part. Like, this is the hardest part, and they all do it. And it's so cool to watch them do that challenging part of yoga. And that's what makes yoga different. But it's something that I see. I'm like very surprised. Like, sometimes I'll do it with them, because if I'm not doing it, they won't do it. But sometimes I'll like lift my head up to see if anyone's just like, if everyone left or if whatever, but they're there. And I remember I did this in classrooms. I've taught at my sister's school, Solomon Schechter, and I would do this at the end. And the teacher said it had a great benefit for the rest of their day, just yoga.
So I have a very busy day and work day, and when I'm in my yoga class or any exercise, obviously I think it gets my head out of it. But at the end of yoga, when we end with the shavasana,
You're in bliss.
so you're basically the lights are off in the room. You're lying flat just on a little 1/4-inch rubber mat on the floor, no pillow, no nothing. You're lying there on your back, palms up, and those 1 to 5 minutes of complete silence and peace and just breathing is so lovely. My only problem is I usually fall asleep. And so I would say, yeah.
Like, you would never think lying on the floor without like anything is not comfortable. It's the most comfortable thing ever.
It really is. You think that you need this fancy bed and pillows, and literally just that 1/4 inch of mat and lying flat on your back and looking up. And my problem is I can't enjoy it because I'm usually asleep. And
so I fell asleep once in my life during that. I think I was sick. I think I had fever. So like, of course I fell asleep.
Yes. I don't know if I'd be so great at pure meditation, because I'd probably be out cold every single time. It's wonderful. And so where do you see yourself with yoga in the future?
So I'm excited.
I'm actually curious to know this as a father.
Okay,
Just
so
let me know.
I always knew that yoga was not going to be my only career, but it was always something I want to continue. So in college, I taught at a club, like a yoga club, and I'm going to be teaching at the Barnard Gym. So that's in my near future.
It's awesome.
And
I'm thinking they're going to give us free tuition now because of that. Is that right? That the whole thing?
Maybe they'll give us free access to the gym.
Yeah.
Maybe.
She gets free laundry. Laundry for all those who are applying to colleges. Barnard, you get free laundry for your tuition dollars. You get free laundry.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to reimburse you in any way. I don't know if they're going to pay me even.
Yeah.
I like to volunteer I like to mix in yoga and volunteering, my two passions. And I'm working on creating a more official way to volunteer in my city of Englewood and in New York, and being able to offer my services and to a wide range of places. So I was thinking maybe homeless shelters, or maybe with city workers and doing it before they go to work, or just because it's so therapeutic and it's just a really good thing for people to have in their life. So I'm like starting to work on a way to make it more established and official, to be able to kind of just reach out to certain organizations or homes and be like, hey, like if you want me to teach, because Like I would love to make it more official.
I think that's fantastic.
And then hopefully one day getting hired by a studio would be amazing. But I have so much time. I have a lot of time.
Right. And it's also something.
And soon I'll be like in only 5 years, I could say I'm 10 years experience.
It's true.
And I'll be like young, continuing to do privates, continuing. I love when people come and ask me about yoga and questions, even though I know nothing about like anything, because I know nothing about the studios now because everything changes. But I
think you know more than you let on.
I don't know a lot about the studios in specific because now I'm pretty much like one of those yoga snobs who goes to one place and has one teacher. But it's nice when people come to me to ask questions. I love giving people short, like if they have like a back pain and I could help them a little bit and give them a stretch.
Right.
But I hope so in the future, to answer your question, making the volunteering more official, unified, and able to do it in an organized way, and working at a studio, hopefully.
Right. And also one of the nice things about being a yoga instructor is you can be an instructor for your whole life, and it doesn't mean it's your career.
Yeah,
right?
You can do training again one day to learn more because you can never know too much.
And you can have a job and do this periodically, in the mornings or weekends or whatever. It's a great way to
make money too if you want to, like just privates. It's like a fun way. It's fun. You're interacting with people and you're helping them. So when you make money, it's like a fun job.
Right. It's pretty cool.
Except when sometimes not so fun, but like usually it's fun.
Yeah, but you get to choose. I mean, who you work. I recommend yoga pretty much to everybody.
Yeah. I loved teaching pregnant women because we did have a class on it in my first training, and I had notes from it, and I went back to it and I remembered. And then I just read some stuff online and stuff. And like, it was so cool being able to teach someone who was so pregnant. Like people were like 8 months pregnant, and it feels good for them. And there's a lot of poses they can do.
Right. And there's actually a fair amount of data on this.
They can do. There's much less that they can't do than can do.
Correct. I generally tell women who are pregnant who either are considering yoga or already practice yoga, is the only thing I really tell them to watch out for is don't do anything that hurts, obviously.
Or lay in your stomach.
Right. Don't do anything you can't physically do.
Yeah. I never try new things. Right. There's no new headstands going on with pregnant women.
I generally tell them not to do inversions and headstands only because their balance could be off and they can fall. Now, someone who's like a real expert and knows that they'll be fine.
The lady next to me today was pregnant in yoga.
Or has someone spotting them, that's okay. And I also tell them to be careful about hot rooms because you're more likely to pass out when you're pregnant. So
I don't even like hot yoga so much.
Yeah. It's not undoable if you're pregnant, but it's definitely something I wouldn't try unless you really know it's going to be okay. And the poses, twisting is fine. You can do the wheel. You can do these things. The trick is kind
of widening your stance. So let's say in normal practice, you have your feet together and you're standing up. For a pregnant woman, I found it like if you just widen the stance, if your feet are not together, they're a little wider. It's much more a
little more balance.
Yeah, that's what has worked. And just that also being with poses, you're like, instead of having your feet both like in the same line being in the center of the mat, you could have one foot go towards the outer edge of the mat and another foot go to the other outer edge of your mat.
Right, to give you some more like width in your pose.
More width.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And you kind of learn as you go along.
Right. And I love when my pregnant patients talk to me, we'll talk about yoga and we'll talk about different teachers or different places and different, poses. And it's the fact that I do it has been so helpful for me to help women who are doing this because so many are. And I can talk, a little more informed about what exactly they're doing.
Even as just a person who practices yoga, when I'm teaching, a lot of the cues I give and a lot of the kind of like tricks I give are from my practice. I'll be like, when I'm practicing, this is what helps me. It's a very universal practice and you can just connect with people just based on your practice. You don't have to be a teacher to connect with someone through yoga.
That's fantastic. Kira, I love this. This is great.
Thanks for interviewing me.
It's so nice. We're having Kira Fox on the podcast here. An Healthful woman. Kira is awesome. Yeah. She's not awesome only because she's my daughter, but she's awesome maybe despite being my daughter. Or in spite of being my daughter. And this is wonderful. And again, I agree that yoga is great for everybody. And I recommend it for women as a part of a healthful lifestyle. For pregnant women, it's certainly an option. It's a great option in pregnancy. Some people need some modifications, but generally it's okay. And if you have any questions, obviously you could shoot us an email. I can even forward it to Kira if you need, if you want it specific for her. And great, we'll see you out on the yoga mat. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Healthful Woman podcast. To learn more about our podcast, please visit our website at www.healthfulwoman.com. That's HEALTHFULWOMAN.com. If you have any questions about this podcast or any other topic you would like us to address, please feel free to email us at hw@healthfulwoman.com. Have a great day. The information discussed in Healthful Woman is intended for educational uses only and does not replace medical care from your physician. Healthful Woman is meant to expand your knowledge of women's health and does not replace ongoing care from your regular physician or gynecologist. We encourage you to speak with your doctor about specific diagnoses and treatment options for an effective treatment plan.